The auction house smelled like mildew and broken dreams. Maya Torres sat in a folding chair that wobbled every time she shifted her weight. Her 9-year-old son, Lucas, pressed against her side, both of them wearing their thrift store coats because the heating hadn't worked in this building for years. Around them sat the vultures, real estate investors in expensive suits, land developers with calculators and cold eyes, people who saw opportunity in other people's failures. Maya was 34 years old. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. Though exhaustion had carved lines that made her look older, her hands were rough from years of cleaning houses, nails bitten short because there was no money for manicures, no time for vanity when you were working 3 jobs just to keep your kid fed and in school. Morning shift at the hospital cafeteria, afternoon cleaning offices downtown, evening stocking shelves at the 24-hour pharmacy. She slept 4 hours a night if she was lucky. 5 if Lucas didn't have nightmares about his father, who'd walked out 3 years ago without even leaving a note, just an empty closet and a maxed-out credit card in Maya's name. The auctioneer cleared his throat. A man in his 60s with a voice like gravel and eyes that had seen 1,000 desperate people make terrible decisions. Next item, Lot 47. The old Celestial Observatory and Planetarium on Highway 9. Built in 1958, been abandoned for 12 years. Structure is condemned. Roof collapsed in the main dome. Foundation cracked. City wants it gone. He pulled up photographs on the projection screen. Maya's breath caught. Even in its destroyed state, the building was beautiful. A massive copper dome, green with age and damage, rising from the desert scrubland like something from a science fiction film. The main structure was Art Deco concrete, once white, but now stained with rust and decay. Broken windows gaped like empty eye sockets. The parking lot was cracked and overgrown. Property includes 3.2 acres, the main planetarium dome, administrative building, and original telescope equipment, though I'm told most of it's been stripped by vandals. Building is structurally unsound. Buyer assumes all liability. No warranty, no guarantees. Demolition would cost approximately $100,000. The auctioneer paused, letting that number sink in. Opening bid is $10,000. Silence. The investors shifted in their seats, glancing at each other with expressions that said, this was a money pit nobody wanted to touch. Maya's hand went to the envelope in her pocket. Inside was $950. Every penny she'd saved over 18 months, hiding cash in a coffee can because her bank account was always one overdraft away from closure. She'd driven past the planetarium 100 times on her way to cleaning jobs, had stopped once with Lucas, letting him run through the overgrown grounds while she stared at that magnificent dome, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, possibility, the sense that maybe, just maybe, this wreckage could become something beautiful again. 10,000. Anyone. The auctioneer scanned the room. 9,000? 8? The numbers dropped. The investors remained silent. This wasn't the kind of property that made money. This was the kind that drained your savings and left you bankrupt. 5,000? Nothing. 4? The auctioneer's voice took on a note of desperation. The city just wanted this problem gone. $3,000 for 3 acres and a historic building. Maya's hand trembled as she raised it slightly. The auctioneer's eyes found her immediately. Relief, flooding his face. "We have 3,000. 1,000, Maya said, her voice barely audible. The room went still. Then someone laughed. A man in the front row, mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of laugh that was meant to humiliate. "Did she just bid 1,000? Lady, you can't even afford to bulldoze that wreck for 1,000. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks but kept her hand up. The auctioneer looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I appreciate the bid, but you understand the property comes with significant $950. Maya interrupted. "That's what I have. Cash. Right now." The room erupted in murmurs. The man in the expensive suit turned to look at her, his expression mixing pity and contempt. "You're going to buy a condemned building with less than $1,000. What's your plan? Live in the rubble?" "My plan is none of your business," Maya shot back, surprised by the steel in her own voice. The auctioneer exchanged glances with someone Maya assumed was the city attorney. A whispered conversation. Then he turned back to the room. "Does anyone want to counterbid $950? Silence. Nobody was going to pay even $1,000 for that disaster. Going once. The gavel hovered. Going twice. Still nothing. Sold to bidder number 73 for $950. The sound of that gavel, coming down, was the loudest thing Maya had ever heard. Lucas grabbed her hand, his eyes wide. "Mommy, did we just buy a spaceship building? We just bought a planetarium. Baby." Maya's voice cracked. "We bought a whole planetarium." The man in the expensive suit approached as Maya was signing paperwork. "You just made the worst financial decision of your life. That building should be demolished. It's dangerous, worthless, a liability. In 6 months, you'll be begging someone to take it off your hands." Maya looked up from the forms, meeting his eyes. "Or, in 6 months, I'll have turned it into something you wish you'd had the imagination to see." He laughed again, that same condescending sound. "Imagination doesn't pay for structural repairs. Reality does. And reality is you just bought a death trap with your grocery money." Maya finished signing and took the deed with shaking hands. The paper felt impossibly light for something that represented everything she'd saved, everything she'd hoped for. The city attorney handed over the keys, 3 of them. Old brass, worn smooth by decades of use. Outside, Maya's sister Carmen was waiting in her car, having driven Maya and Lucas to the auction. Carmen took one look at Maya's face and sighed. "You bought it, didn't you?" "Maya, tell me you didn't actually." "I bought it." Maya climbed into the passenger seat, Lucas scrambling into the back. $950 for 3 acres and a planetarium. "That building is condemned. The roof is caved in." "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking about the night Mom took us to see the stars there when we were kids. Remember? Before she got sick. She held our hands and told us we could be anything, go anywhere, reach any dream if we were brave enough." Maya's voice broke. "This is me being brave enough." Carmen's expression softened, but worry remained. "Bravery doesn't fix collapsed roofs. What's your actual plan here?" "I don't know yet, but I have 3 acres, a building with history, and a son who needs to see his mother fight for something instead of just surviving." Maya clutched the deed against her chest. "That has to count for something." They drove to the planetarium in silence. Lucas pressed his face against the window as the structure came into view, rising from the desert like a relic from another age. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. Up close, the damage was worse than the photographs had shown. The main dome had a massive hole where the roof had collapsed, exposing rusted metal framework and broken glass. The administrative building's windows were boarded up, some of them torn away by wind or vandals. Graffiti covered the lower walls. The parking lot was a maze of cracks where desert plants had forced their way through concrete. But beneath the decay, Maya could see what it had been. The elegant curves of the Art Deco architecture, the way the dome caught the afternoon light, the careful placement of the buildings to minimize light pollution from the highway. Someone had loved this place once. Someone had built it with dreams of showing children the universe. Can we go inside? Lucas was already tugging at his seatbelt. Not yet, baby. We need to make sure it's safe first. Carmen parked, and they all got out. The desert wind was cold, carrying the scent of sage and dust. Maya approached the main entrance, the brass keys heavy in her hand. The first key opened the outer gate, which screamed in protest. Hinges rusted from years of neglect. The second key fit the main door. Maya, seriously, you should have this inspected before you go in there. The structure could collapse. Just 5 minutes. I just want to see. The door opened into darkness. Maya pulled out her phone for light, the beam cutting through dust that hung in the air like fog. The entrance hall was surprisingly intact. Tile floors, though cracked and dirty. Display cases that had once held meteorite samples, now empty except for broken glass. A mural on the wall showing the solar system, planets painted in vibrant colors that had faded but not disappeared. They moved deeper into the building. The administrative offices had been stripped of anything valuable: desks, chairs, computers, all gone. But the walls still held framed photographs from the planetarium's heyday. School groups gathered under the dome, families pointing at projected stars, scientists giving lectures. The door to the main dome chamber was locked. Maya tried all 3 keys. The third one fit, but the lock was stubborn, fighting her. Lucas helped her turn it, both of them putting their small weight into it. The lock finally gave with a sound like breaking bones. The door swung open, and they stepped into a space that stole Maya's breath. The dome chamber was enormous, maybe 60 feet in diameter. The collapsed section of roof had let in years of weather, leaving puddles of stagnant water and piles of debris on the floor. But the dome itself was magnificent, even in ruin. The copper interior showed traces of the original star map constellations painted in silver and gold, some of them still visible despite the damage. In the center of the room sat the projector, a massive Carl Zeiss star projector from the 1950s, a mechanical marvel of lenses and gears that looked like something between a machine and a sculpture. It was covered in dust and bird droppings, but largely intact. "Mummy, look!" Lucas was pointing at the walls. "There are doors." He was right. Set into the curved wall of the dome were 6 small doors, each about 3 feet tall. Maintenance, access probably, or storage. Maya approached the nearest one and tried the handle. Locked. She tried her keys. None of them fit. "We'll figure it out later." She took Lucas's hand. "Come on. We should go before it gets dark." They spent the rest of the afternoon walking the property. 3 acres didn't sound like much until you were standing in it. There was enough space for parking, for gardens, for outdoor exhibits. The telescope building was completely destroyed, its roof gone, equipment stolen. But the main dome and administrative building, despite the damage, had good bones. That night, in their tiny one-bedroom apartment that they could barely afford, Maya made Lucas dinner spaghetti again because it was cheap and listened to him talk about the planetarium non-stop. How they could clean it up, how they could show stars again, how maybe his class could visit once it was fixed. After Lucas fell asleep, Maya sat at their cramped kitchen table with a calculator and a notebook, doing math that didn't work. No matter how many times she tried, she had $0 left after the auction. The planetarium needed at least 100,000 in repairs just to make it safe, probably twice that to make it functional. She had no skills in construction, no connections to contractors, no way to fund any of it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Carmen. "Everyone's talking," Victor called. "Said you lost your mind buying that death trap. Family thinks you need an intervention." Victor was their older brother. Successful accountant. 2 kids in private school. House in the suburbs. Everything Maya was supposed to have achieved, but hadn't. She typed back. "Family can mind their own business. They're worried. I'm worried. You spent everything on a building you can't afford to fix. I spent everything on hope. That's worth more than you think. Hope doesn't pay for new roofs." Maya didn't respond. She knew Carmen was right. Knew Victor would be right. Knew everyone who'd laughed at the auction would be right when she failed, and the building stayed a condemned ruin, slowly collapsing into the desert. But something in her refused to accept that. Something had pulled her to that planetarium, some instinct deeper than logic. The same instinct that had kept her working 3 jobs when it would have been easier to give up. The same stubborn fire that made her fight, even when the universe kept knocking her down. 3 days later, Maya went back to the planetarium alone. Lucas was at school. She'd called in sick to her morning shift, something she never did because she couldn't afford to lose wages, but she needed time at the building without distractions. She brought cleaning supplies, work gloves, a crowbar, and a hammer. Not because she had a real plan, but because doing something felt better than sitting in her apartment, calculating impossible numbers. The morning was cold, desert wind cutting through her jacket. Inside the planetarium, she started with the entrance hall, swept up broken glass, scrubbed graffiti off the walls with chemicals that made her eyes water. It was pointless, really cosmetic repairs on a building that needed structural salvation, but it felt like progress. By noon, she'd cleared the entrance hall and one of the administrative offices. The main dome chamber was next. She stood in the doorway, staring at those 6 small locked doors built into the curved wall. They bothered her. Why lock maintenance closets? What was worth protecting in an abandoned building? Maya tried her 3 brass keys again on each door. None of them fit. She examined the locks more carefully. They weren't standard padlocks. These were old combination locks, built into the doors themselves. 4 numbers each, the kind that had been popular in the 1940s and 50s. She tried obvious combinations. 1958, the year the building was constructed. Nothing. 1900, a guess at when the original structure might have been planned. Nothing. She tried spinning the dial randomly, hoping for luck. Nothing. Frustrated, she went back to cleaning. Swept up debris from the collapsed roof section, pushed standing water toward the drains. Found old star maps in a filing cabinet. Water damaged, but still beautiful. Found a box of promotional materials, brochures from the planetariums. Opening, tickets, photographs of the ribbon-cutting ceremony. In one photograph, she saw a man standing next to the star projector, older, maybe 60, wearing a suit despite the desert heat. He had his hand on the projector like it was a beloved pet. The caption read, "Dr. Emil Castellanos, founder and director, with his gift to West Texas, a window to the universe." Maya stared at the photograph. Something about the man's face struck her. He looked tired but proud, like someone who'd sacrificed everything for a dream and didn't regret it. She found more photographs of Dr. Castellanos, always with the star projector, always looking at it with an expression that went beyond professional pride. This was love, obsession, maybe. The kind of singular focus that built something magnificent and then vanished when the dream died. The planetarium had closed in 2012, according to the records she found. Budget cuts. The city couldn't afford to maintain it. Dr. Castellanos had fought the closure for years, writing letters, organizing protests, offering to work without pay. But in the end, money won. It always did. The planetarium closed, and Dr. Castellanos disappeared from the records. Maya wondered if he was still alive. If he knew someone had bought his dream for $950, if he'd be heartbroken or hopeful that maybe, somehow, it could be saved. As the sun started to set, painting the dome chamber in orange and gold light, Maya found herself standing in front of those 6 locked doors again. There had to be a way to open them. Dr. Castellanos wouldn't have secured them so carefully unless they contained something important. She examined the doors more closely. Each one had a small brass plaque above it, tarnished but still readable. The first door read, Aries. The second, Taurus. The third, Gemini, the zodiac. All 6 doors were labeled with zodiac signs. Maya's skin prickled. This wasn't random. This was intentional, meaningful. But what did it mean? She pulled out her phone and searched for information about Dr. Emil Castellanos. Found an obituary from 2018. He died at 92, survived by no children, leaving his estate to various astronomical societies. The obituary mentioned his passionate dedication to bringing the cosmos to the public and his innovative approaches to astronomical education. Innovative approaches. Maya stared at those locked doors. What had Dr. Castellanos been innovating behind them? She tried birth dates next, converting them to 4-digit codes. Dr. Castellanos had been born in 1926. She tried 1,926 on each lock. Nothing. She tried the year the planetarium opened. 1,958. Nothing. She tried significant astronomical years, 1,969, for the moon landing, 1,957 for Sputnik. Nothing worked. As darkness fell, Maya sat on the floor of the dome chamber, exhausted and discouraged. She'd cleaned for 8 hours and accomplished nothing that mattered. The building was still condemned. She was still broke. Those doors were still locked. Her phone buzzed. Lucas, texting from Carmen's house, where he stayed after school while Maya worked. "Did you find treasure today?" Maya smiled despite everything. Lucas had been convinced, since the auction, that the planetarium must contain hidden treasure. He'd read too many adventure books. But his optimism was infectious, even when it was impossible. "Still looking, baby, but I found cool old pictures. Keep looking. I know it's there." Maya leaned her head back against the wall, and closed her eyes. Treasure. If only. What she'd found was mold, broken glass, and a very expensive problem she couldn't solve. But something kept nagging at her. Those doors, the zodiac signs, the combination locks. Dr. Castellanos had locked something away deliberately. Something he'd wanted protected, even after the planetarium closed. She opened her eyes and looked at the dome's ceiling. Even damaged, even with a huge hole letting in the sky, it was beautiful. The painted constellations were fading but still visible. Aries the ram, Taurus the bull, Gemini the twins. Wait. Maya stood up so fast her head spun. The constellations on the dome, the zodiac signs on the doors. What if they were connected? She moved to the first door, labeled Aries. She tilted her head back and scanned the dome ceiling until she found Aries painted in silver stars. The constellation was damaged. Some stars flaked away, but she could still make out the pattern. She counted the stars in the constellation. 14 major stars visible in the painting. She tried 0014 on the combination lock. Nothing. She tried 1400. Nothing. Think, what else about Aries? She searched on her phone. Aries was the first sign of the zodiac. First sign. She tried 0001. Nothing. She tried the date range for Aries March 21st to April 19th. She tried 0321. Nothing. She tried 0419. Nothing. She tried the main stars in Aries. Hamal, the brightest star, was Alpha Arietis. She tried 0101 for the first letter. Nothing. She tried converting the Greek letter alpha to a number. Nothing worked. Frustrated, she moved to the second door, Torres. She found the constellation on the dome, counted stars, tried dates, tried star names. Nothing opened the lock. 2 hours later, Maya's fingers were sore from spinning combination dials, and her phone battery was dying. She'd tried everything she could think of. Zodiac dates, star counts, constellation coordinates, historical dates related to each sign. Nothing worked. She was about to give up when her phone's dying battery made the screen dim. The low light revealed something she hadn't seen before. There was faint writing on the brass plaque above the Gemini door, not engraved like the zodiac name. Scratched lightly, as if someone had used a key or nail to write a message they didn't want to be too obvious. Maya held her phone closer, squinting. All truth lives in the stars. She turned to examine the other plaques. Each one had similar, scratched messages, barely visible. Patience reveals the hidden. Numbers tell the story. Watch the heavens for answers. These were clues. Dr. Castellanos had left clues. Maya's heart hammered. She looked up at the dome again, really looked. Not just at the constellations, but at everything. The painted stars, the coordinates marked in tiny numbers beside some of them, the way certain stars were painted slightly larger than others. Wait. She moved to stand directly under the Gemini constellation. 2 bright stars marked the heads of the twins Castor and Pollux. Beside each star, in gold paint so faded she'd almost missed it, were 4-digit numbers. Castor, 1975. Pollux, 1977. Maya ran to the Gemini door and entered 1975 into the combination lock. The mechanism clicked. She held her breath and turned the handle. The door swung open. Inside was darkness. Maya shone her phone light into the space and saw a narrow tunnel, maybe 3 feet tall, extending back into the wall. It looked like it went deep, maybe 20 feet. She couldn't see where it ended. "Oh my God," she whispered. She called Lucas. "Baby, I'm going to be late picking you up. Tell Aunt Carmen I'm sorry. Did you find the treasure? I found a secret tunnel. I'm going to explore it." "Be careful, Mummy. Secret tunnels always have booby traps in books." Maya laughed, despite her racing heart. "I'll watch out for booby traps. I love you. Love you too. Find diamonds." Maya ended the call and stared into that dark tunnel. Every rational part of her brain said to wait, come back with proper equipment, maybe even call someone for help. But the desperate, hopeful part, the part that had bought this building with her last $950, couldn't wait. She got on her hands and knees and crawled into the tunnel. The space was tight, barely wide enough for her shoulders. The walls were smooth concrete, cold against her hands. Her phone light showed the tunnel extended straight back. No curves, no branches. Just a direct path into darkness. After about 15 feet, the tunnel opened into a small chamber, maybe 6 feet square and tall enough for Maya to stand hunched over. Her phone light swept the space, revealing metal shelving units against 3 walls. And on those shelves, rocks, hundreds of rocks, various sizes, from small as marbles to large as bowling balls. Each one sitting on individual displays with handwritten labels. Maya moved closer, reading the labels in disbelief. Cicote Allen meteorite fragment, 47 grams. Fell the 12th of February 1947, Russia. Canyon Diablo meteorite, 193 grams. From Meteor Crater, Arizona. Gibeon meteorite slice, 312 grams. Namibia. Found 1,836 meteorites. The chamber was filled with meteorites. Maya's hands trembled as she picked up one of the specimens. The Cicote Allen fragment was heavy for its size, with a pitted surface that looked like it had been melted and frozen mid-flow. The Canyon Diablo piece was dark and metallic, surprisingly dense. The Gibeon slice had been cut and polished, revealing a crystal pattern called Widmanstätten, lines of metal that formed naturally in the extreme conditions of space. She scanned the shelves quickly. Dozens of specimens, maybe 100, each one carefully labeled with its discovery, location, date, and weight. This wasn't just a collection. This was a museum-quality archive of meteorite specimens. But why hidden? Why locked behind combination locks in secret chambers? Maya took photographs of everything with her dying phone, documenting the shelves and labels. Then she carefully backed out of the tunnel, emerged into the dome chamber, and sat on the floor, trying to process what she'd found. Meteorites could be valuable. She knew that from occasional news stories about specimens selling at auction. But how valuable? Enough to matter. Enough to help save the planetarium. She searched on her phone for meteorite values. The results made her dizzy. Small iron meteorites, hundreds to thousands of dollars per gram. Rare specimens from Witnessed Falls, tens of thousands per gram. Martian or lunar meteorites, 6 figures for significant pieces. She did quick math with the weights she'd photographed. The Cicote Allen fragment at 47 grams, she'd seen similar pieces online, selling for $200 per gram. That was almost $10,000 for one small rock. The Canyon Diablo at 193 grams, maybe $100 per gram for pieces from such a famous crater. Another $19,000. And she'd seen dozens more specimens in that chamber. If they were all authentic, if they could be authenticated and sold. Maya's hands shook so hard she almost dropped her phone. She had to open the other doors. Had to see what else Dr. Castellanos had hidden in this building. She examined the dome ceiling again, finding the coordinates for each zodiac constellation. Taurus had two main stars with numbers. Aldebaran showed 1,973. Another star showed 1,981. She tried 1,973 on the Taurus door. It opened. Another tunnel. Another chamber. More meteorites. Door by door, constellation by constellation. Maya unlocked all 6 chambers over the next 2 hours. Each one contained meteorite specimens, carefully organized and labeled. Some chambers held iron meteorites, others held stony meteorites. One chamber was devoted entirely to specimens from famous impact sites. Another held pieces from witnessed falls meteorites that had been recovered shortly after people saw them streak through the sky and impact. By midnight, Maya had photographed hundreds of specimens. Her phone was nearly dead. Her knees were scraped from crawling through tunnels, but her mind was racing faster than it ever had. She sat in the center of the dome chamber, surrounded by open doors leading to secret chambers full of space rocks, and tried to understand what Dr. Castellanos had done. He'd collected meteorites for decades, had probably spent his entire career building this archive. When the planetarium closed, he couldn't take the collection with him. Meteorites were heavy, valuable, and he must have known they'd be confiscated or sold to pay the city's debts. So he'd hidden them, built secret chambers accessible only through combination locks tied to the constellations he loved. And then he died, taking the secret to his grave. Except he'd left clues, scratched messages on the plaques, coordinates painted on the dome. A puzzle that required someone to care enough about this place to look carefully, to think like an astronomer, to connect the stars above with the doors below. Maya's phone finally died. She sat in darkness, broken only by moonlight streaming through the hole in the dome. She should go home, should pick up Lucas from Carmen's, should sleep, though she knew sleep was impossible now. But first she needed to understand what she'd found. Needed to know if this collection was as valuable as she suspected, or if her exhausted brain was making desperate calculations based on hope instead of reality. She drove home in a daze, her mind churning. At Carmen's house, Lucas was already asleep on the couch. Carmen took one look at Maya's face and poured her coffee. "What happened? You look like you saw a ghost." Maya sat at Carmen's kitchen table and pulled out her phone, plugging it in to charge. "I found something. In the planetarium. I need to show you the pictures, but you have to promise not to tell anyone yet. Not Victor, not anyone. You're scaring me. What did you find?" When Maya's phone had enough charge, she showed Carmen the photographs, the secret chambers, the meteorite specimens, the careful labels. Carmen stared at the images, her expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and growing excitement. Are these real? Are meteorites actually this valuable? If they're authentic? Yes. I looked up prices. Small iron meteorites can be worth thousands. Rare specimens are worth tens of thousands, or more. And Carmen, there are hundreds of specimens in there. Maybe more chambers I haven't found yet. So, what are you saying? That you bought a condemned building for $950 and found something that might be worth millions? Maya's voice broke. I don't know for sure. I need experts. I need authentication. But Carmen, if even half of these are real and valuable, you could save the planetarium. I could save everything. They sat in silence, both of them trying to process the impossibility of it. Maya Torres, who'd worked 3 jobs for years, who couldn't afford a car repair without panic, who'd spent her last dollar on a building everyone said was worthless. She might have just found a fortune hidden in the walls. What do you do now? Carmen asked. I don't know. Call experts? Auction houses? I have no idea how to authenticate meteorites, or sell them, or any of this. Maya felt overwhelmed, the magnitude of the discovery crashing down on her. What if I'm wrong? What if they're fake, or stolen, or there's some legal reason I can't have them? Or, what if they're real, and you just won the lottery? Maya laughed, a sound that was half hysteria. I need to be careful. If word gets out about this, before I understand what I have, people will come for it. Your family, the city, everyone who laughed at you at that auction. Exactly. They made a plan. Carmen would help Maya research meteorite authentication services and auction houses. They'd operate quietly, tell no one, get expert opinions before going public, and most importantly, they'd protect Lucas from the chaos this could become. The next morning, Maya called in sick to all 3 of her jobs. First time ever she'd done that for all of them simultaneously. She dropped Lucas at school with a kiss and a promise that, yes, they'd go back to the planetarium that afternoon. Then she drove to the nearest university, a 3-hour trip to a school with an earth sciences department. She brought her phone with photographs and a small meteorite specimen she'd taken from one of the chambers, the Cicote Allen fragment, because it was small enough to transport safely. The geology professor who agreed to see her was a woman in her 50s named Dr. Sarah Chen. She had the kind of patient, curious expression that made Maya feel slightly less crazy for showing up unannounced with wild claims about space rocks. Miss Torres, you said on the phone you have a meteorite you'd like authenticated. Maya placed the specimen on Dr. Chen's desk carefully. I found it in a building I purchased. There are hundreds more where this came from. I need to know if they're real. Dr. Chen picked up the specimen, examining it with a hand lens. Her expression shifted from polite interest to intense focus. She weighed the fragment on a precise scale, took out a magnet, and watched how strongly the meteorite attracted to it. Examined the surface texture under magnification. Where exactly did you find this? Her voice had changed, becoming sharper. In the old Celestial Observatory and Planetarium. I bought it at auction. The building was abandoned for years. I found secret chambers in the walls, filled with labeled meteorite specimens. Dr. Chen looked up. The Castellanos Planetarium? The one that closed in 2012? You know it? Every astronomer in the region knows about it. Dr. Emil Castellanos was legendary. He had one of the most extensive private meteorite collections in the Southwest. When he died, people assumed the collection had been donated to museums or sold off. Dr. Chen's eyes widened. Are you telling me it's been hidden in that building all along? Maya nodded, pulling out her phone. I took photographs of the labels, hundreds of specimens. They're organized by type iron, stony, impact sites. Witnessed falls. Dr. Chen scrolled through the images, her hand coming up to cover her mouth. Oh my God. This is... Miss Torres, some of these specimens are incredibly rare. If they're authentic and, based on this Sikote Alin fragment, I believe they are, you've found something extraordinary. How extraordinary? Like, what's the value of something like this? Dr. Chen sat back in her chair, calculating. Conservative estimate, just based on what I can see in these photographs. Several $1 million. But that's assuming average values and typical specimens. If some of these are particularly rare or large, she looked at Maya seriously. You could be looking at tens of millions, possibly more if there are any Martian or lunar specimens in the collection. The room tilted. Maya gripped the edge of the desk. Tens of millions? The meteorite market has exploded in the last decade. Wealthy collectors pay extraordinary amounts for rare specimens. Museum-quality pieces can sell for 6 or 7 figures. And Dr. Castellanos was known for his exceptional taste. He didn't collect common meteorites. He sought out the rarest, most scientifically significant pieces. Maya felt tears building. I spent $950. Everything I had. People laughed at me. Dr. Chen smiled. Well, they're not going to be laughing much longer. Miss Torres, you need several things immediately. First, you need to secure that building. If anyone else finds out about this before you have proper security, they'd steal it. Without question. Second, you need a complete authentication and cataloging done by certified experts. I can recommend people. Third, you need a lawyer who specializes in property rights and valuable discoveries. And fourth, you need to decide what you want to do with this collection. What do you mean? You could sell it, make a fortune, and walk away. Or you could keep it. Make the Planetarium into a world-class meteorite museum. The Castellanos collection is famous among specialists. If you opened it to the public, properly curated and displayed, you'd have something unique, priceless. Really. Maya thought about Dr. Castellanos, standing next to his star projector, that expression of love and obsession. He hadn't hidden his collection to keep it from the world. He'd hidden it to protect it, to keep it safe until someone who cared about the planetarium could use it properly. I want to keep it, Maya said. I want to restore the planetarium and display the collection like Dr. Castellanos would have wanted. But I need money to make that happen. Then you sell some pieces to fund the restoration. Keep the core collection intact. Sell duplicates or less significant specimens. That gives you capital to work with while preserving the collection's integrity. Dr. Chen made several phone calls right there in her office. Within an hour, Maya had appointments with a meteorite authentication service, a property rights attorney, and an insurance specialist. Dr. Chen also connected her with a security company that specialized in protecting valuable collections. This is going to move fast now, Dr. Chen warned. Once word gets out, and it will get out, you're going to have attention from all directions. Dealers, collectors, researchers, media. Are you prepared for that? Maya thought about the man at the auction who'd laughed at her, about Victor who thought she'd lost her mind, about all the people who'd dismissed her as a poor single mom who'd made a desperate, stupid decision. I'm prepared. The authentication team arrived at the planetarium 3 days later. 2 specialists from a company that certified meteorites for major auction houses. They spent 8 hours examining specimens, taking samples for analysis, photographing, and weighing everything. Maya watched them work, her stomach in knots. What if she was wrong? What if the specimens were fake or stolen, or somehow not legally hers? But as the hours passed, the specialists' excitement grew. They handled each specimen with reverence, murmuring to each other about rare formations and exceptional pieces. One of them found a specimen labeled Lunar Meteorite, Northwest Africa, 11182, 8.4 grams. "Miss Torres," he said carefully, "do you understand what this is? A moon rock. A piece of the moon that was blasted off by an impact, traveled through space, and landed on Earth. There are only about 550 pounds of lunar meteorites known in the entire world. This specimen, if authentic, is worth approximately $10,000 per gram." Maya did the math. $84,000 for one small rock the size of a walnut. The specialist was already examining another label, Martian Meteorite, Shergotti, 12.3 grams. "Miss Torres, this is..." His voice actually shook. "This is museum quality." By the end of the day, they'd examined all 6 chambers. The lead specialist sat Maya down with a preliminary report. "Miss Torres, the Castellanos collection contains 347 authenticated specimens, totaling approximately 183 kilograms of meteorite material. The collection includes specimens from 47 different meteorite falls and finds, representing iron, stony, and stony iron categories. It includes 14 lunar specimens, 7 Martian specimens, and samples from 9 historically significant impact sites." He pulled out a calculator. Quote, "Based on current market values for comparable specimens, conservative estimate for the entire collection is approximately $287 million. That's if you sold everything at wholesale prices to dealers. If you auction the rarest pieces individually, especially the lunar and Martian specimens, you could exceed $315 million. The number was so large, it became meaningless. Maya couldn't process it. $315 million, hidden in the walls of a building she'd bought for $950. However, the specialist continued, "I strongly advise against selling the entire collection. This is scientifically significant. Dr. Castellanos was one of the premier collectors of his generation. This collection should be preserved and displayed as a unit. It's culturally valuable, not just monetarily. What if I sold just some pieces? Enough to restore the building and create a proper museum for the rest?" The specialist nodded approvingly. "That would be ideal. I'd suggest selling approximately 30% of the collection duplicate specimens or less scientifically significant pieces. That would generate roughly $90 million, more than enough to restore the planetarium, build a world-class facility, and endow an operating fund for decades." $90 million. Even saying it in her head sounded ridiculous. Maya signed contracts with the authentication service, hired the security company to guard the planetarium 24 hours a day, and met with the property lawyer who confirmed that yes, the collection was legally hers. It had been on her property when she purchased it. And Dr. Castellanos had died without specifically bequeathing the meteorites to anyone. They'd been abandoned property, and she'd found them. However, the lawyer warned, once this becomes public, you'll face challenges. The city might claim they should have known about the collection, and therefore the building was sold under false pretenses. Dr. Castellanos's relatives, if any exist, might contest ownership. And meteorite dealers will come out of the woodwork with all sorts of claims. What should I do? We file documentation with the county immediately, establishing your ownership and the discovery. We get the collection insured and secured, and we prepare for the media circus when this breaks. The circus started sooner than expected. Maya had been careful, had told only Carmen, Dr. Chen, and the professionals she'd hired, had sworn Lucas to secrecy about the treasure, though he didn't understand its full scope. But someone talked. Maybe one of the authentication specialists. Maybe the security company. Maybe just word spreading through the small network of meteorite dealers who'd noticed sudden activity at the old planetarium. A reporter showed up at Maya's door on a Thursday evening. Local news station. The woman had that practiced, sympathetic expression reporters use when they smell a human interest story. Miss Torres, I'm hearing rumors about a significant discovery at the planetarium you purchased. Would you care to comment? Maya's heart sank. I have no comment at this time. Sources tell me you've found a collection of meteorites worth potentially hundreds of millions of dollars. Is that true? Where did you hear that? So you're not denying it? Maya closed the door, but the damage was done. By morning, the story was everywhere. Local news led with, "Single mom strikes it rich, condemned building, contains meteorite fortune." National news picked it up by afternoon. Poor woman buys building for $950, finds $300, million treasure. The phone didn't stop ringing. Reporters, meteorite dealers, lawyers claiming to represent Dr. Castellanos' estate, the city attorney demanding a meeting, Victor calling to ask why he had to learn about this from the news, Carmen showing up with Lucas, both of them trying to escape their own media circus. And worst of all, the man from the auction, the one who'd laughed at Maya for buying a death trap, appearing on the local news, claiming that he'd been interested in the building for its historical value, and Maya had stolen it. Through an unfair bidding process, I offered to pay a reasonable price, he told the camera, his face the picture of wounded innocence, but she manipulated the auction by underbidding everyone. She must have known what was hidden there. This should be investigated. Maya watched the interview with disbelief. He didn't offer to pay anything. He laughed at me. Carmen was furious. This is unbelievable. Everyone who mocked you now wants a piece. Lucas was on the couch, half listening. Mommy, why is everyone mad at you? You found the treasure like I said you would. Because adults are jealous, baby. When someone finds something good, other people get angry instead of happy for them. The doorbell rang again. Maya ignored it. But then her phone buzzed the property lawyer. Miss Torres, the city is filing a claim against you. They're arguing that the meteorite collection was a hidden asset that should have been disclosed before the auction, and therefore the sale was invalid. They want the building and the collection back. Maya felt her world cracking. Can they do that? They can try. It won't work legally. You're in the clear. The city owned the building for 12 years and never discovered the collection. You bought the property as is, with all contents. But they're going to make this ugly. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in the darkness of her tiny bedroom she'd given Lucas, the only bedroom. She slept on a fold-out couch in the living room and wondered if finding the collection had been a blessing or a curse. She'd spent years working 3 jobs, surviving in quiet desperation. It had been terrible, but it had been hers. Nobody bothered poor people. Nobody wanted what you had when you had nothing. Now everyone wanted something from her. The city wanted the collection. Dealers wanted to buy it. Reporters wanted her story. Her family wanted well. She wasn't sure what they wanted, but Victor had already left 3 messages about managing this opportunity properly. Only Lucas was unchanged. He'd fallen asleep that night clutching a small meteorite specimen. Maya had let him hold a common iron meteorite. Nothing valuable, but to him it was treasure beyond measure because it had come from space. Maya went to the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, the planetarium sat in the desert, guarded by security, holding secrets that were now causing her life to implode. She thought about Dr. Castellanos, who'd built that place with dreams of showing children the universe, who'd spent his life collecting pieces of space that fell to Earth, who'd loved those meteorites so much, he'd hidden them rather than see them sold off when the money dried up. He'd left her a gift, not just the collection, but a choice. She could sell everything and walk away rich. Could take the money and give Lucas everything she'd never had: good schools, a safe neighborhood, a childhood without poverty. Or she could honor Dr. Castellanos's dream. Could use the collection to rebuild the planetarium into something magnificent. Could create a place where children like Lucas could stand under projected stars and feel, even for a moment, that the universe was within reach. The choice should have been easy, practical. Take the money and run. But Maya couldn't shake the image of Dr. Castellanos standing next to that star projector, his hand resting on it like a blessing. In the morning, Maya called a press conference. The property lawyer had advised against it, but Maya was done hiding. The planetarium parking lot was packed with media. At least 30 news crews, plus reporters from newspapers and magazines. The story had gone national: poor, single mom, hidden fortune, human interest drama that wrote itself. Maya stood in front of the damaged dome with Lucas beside her, Carmen behind them for support, and security keeping the crowd at a respectful distance. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice shaking. "I know there's been a lot of speculation about what I found in this building, so I'm here to tell you the truth." She explained everything. The auction, the locked doors, the discovery of the meteorite chambers, the authentication showing the collection was worth potentially $315 million. The city is claiming I should give this back, that I somehow cheated by finding what they never looked for in 12 years of ownership. People who laughed at me for buying this building now claim I manipulated them. Maya's voice strengthened. But I'm not giving anything back. I bought this property legally. I found this collection through careful observation and research, and I'm going to use it to do something Dr. Emil Castellanos would have wanted. She gestured at the damaged building behind her. I'm keeping 70% of the meteorite collection and using it to create the Castellanos Museum of Meteorites and Astronomy. The other 30%, approximately $90 million worth, will be sold at auction to fund complete restoration of this planetarium, construction of a world-class museum facility, and establishment of an endowment to keep this place free and open to the public forever. A reporter shouted a question. "What about the city's claim that you defrauded them?" "I didn't defraud anyone. I took a risk they weren't willing to take. I saw value where they saw garbage. And now I'm going to turn that garbage into something beautiful." Maya looked directly at the camera. "To everyone who laughed at me at that auction, thank you. Your contempt made this cheap enough for someone like me to afford. To the man who called this a death trap, come back in 2 years, and see what a death trap can become when someone loves it. Lucas pulled on her sleeve. "Can I say something?" Maya looked down at her son, surprised. "You want to talk to all these people?" "Yeah. I want to tell them about the stars." She handed him the microphone. Lucas looked at the crowd of reporters with the fearless confidence of a 9-year-old who'd never learned to be intimidated. "My mom works really hard. 3 jobs, she's tired all the time, but she never complains. And she bought this place because she wanted to show me that you can do big things even when you don't have a lot of money." His voice was clear and strong. The man who said mean things about her should be ashamed. "My mom is going to make this the best planetarium in the whole world. And when you come visit, you can see real rocks from space and learn about the universe." Because that's what Dr. Castellanos wanted. He wanted everyone to see the stars, not just rich people. The reporters were silent. Then someone started clapping. Then more. Within seconds, the entire crowd was applauding a 9-year-old who'd just shamed them all for their cynicism. Maya pulled Lucas close, tears streaming down her face. This was why she'd found the collection. Not for money, not for revenge against people who'd dismissed her, but so her son could grow up believing that the impossible was just difficult, not forbidden. The auction of the 30% of the collection happened 6 months later. Sotheby's handled it, making it a major event. The Castellanos collection, Meteorites, that had been hidden for nearly a decade, finally revealed to the world. The lunar specimens alone sold for $42 million. The Martian meteorites brought in another $31 million. Rare iron meteorites, pieces from famous impact sites, witnessed fall specimens. Every lot exceeded estimates. Final total, $94 million. More than enough to transform a condemned building into a temple of science. Maya hired architects who specialized in historic preservation. They kept the Art Deco bones of the building, but modernized everything else. The collapsed dome section was repaired with a combination of traditional copper work and modern materials. The star projector was restored to working condition by the same company that had built it 70 years ago. The 6 secret chambers were transformed into climate-controlled museum galleries, each one dedicated to a different type of meteorite. The tunnels leading to them became part of the experience. Visitors would crawl through the same spaces Maya had crawled through, feeling that sense of discovery for themselves. New buildings were added. A research laboratory where scientists could study the collection. A classroom facility for school groups. A library containing Dr. Castellanos's papers and research. An outdoor sculpture garden featuring actual meteorite impact specimens too large to display indoors. Through it all, Maya worked. Not with her hands, she'd hired contractors for that, but with her vision. She interviewed every potential curator, every educator, every person who would touch Dr. Castellanos's legacy. She insisted the facility be free to the public, that every child, regardless of income, could stand under those projected stars. Lucas became the unofficial spokesman. Now 10 years old, he gave tours to reporters, explaining meteorite classification systems and the history of the planetarium with the enthusiasm of someone who'd found his calling. Carmen managed the finances, having quit her own job to help Maya full-time. "Never thought I'd be CFO of a museum," she laughed. "But here we are." Victor showed up once, trying to position himself as a supporter now that the money was real. Maya let him tour the construction site, then told him clearly that she didn't need his help or approval. He'd dismissed her when she was desperate. She wasn't going to forget that now that she was successful. The man from the auction, Gerald Whitmore, she'd learned his name, tried to sue her for emotional distress, claiming her success had damaged his reputation. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, the judge noting acidly that Mr. Whitmore's reputation had been damaged by his own words, not Miss Torres's actions. Dr. Sarah Chen became the museum's chief scientific advisor, helping curate the collection and design exhibits that were both accurate and accessible. Dr. Castellanos would be proud, she told Maya during one of her visits. This is better than what the planetarium was before. You didn't just restore his dream, you evolved it. 2 years after buying the building for $950, Maya stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Castellanos Museum of Meteorites and Astronomy. The parking lot that had been cracked and overgrown was now landscaped and full. The building that had been condemned and forgotten gleamed in the desert sun, its restored copper dome shining like a beacon. 3,000 people had shown up for opening day. School buses lined the access road. Local officials who'd tried to take the building back now smiled for cameras and made speeches about supporting the arts and sciences. The media circus had become a celebration. Maya wore a simple blue dress, her hair done professionally for the first time in years. But she wasn't comfortable in the spotlight. Never would be. This wasn't about her. Lucas cut the ribbon with oversized scissors, grinning ear to ear. The crowd cheered as the doors opened and people flooded into the entrance hall, where Maya had swept broken glass 2 years earlier. Inside, the transformation was complete. The entrance hall displayed the largest meteorite in the collection, a 450-pound iron specimen from Campo del Cielo, Argentina, sitting on a custom pedestal with lighting that made it seem to glow. The walls showed those photographs Maya had found of the original planetarium, Dr. Castellanos with his star projector, children pointing at projected constellations. The 6 gallery chambers held the core collection, organized by type and story. One chamber focused on lunar and Martian meteorites, rocks that had once been part of other worlds. Another displayed iron meteorites, their metallic surfaces polished to reveal crystalline structures. A third showed specimens from famous impact sites, pieces of celestial bodies that had collided with Earth violently enough to leave craters. Each gallery had interactive elements designed for children. Touch screens explaining how meteorites formed, microscopes to examine thin sections, virtual reality experiences showing what it would be like to stand on the surface of the Moon or Mars. But the centerpiece was the dome chamber. Maya had saved it for last, leading Lucas and Carmen and Dr. Chen through the galleries until they reached the main doors. Inside, the restored dome curved overhead, its copper interior now painted with a new star map, more accurate than the original, but honoring Dr. Castellanos's artistic vision. The Carl Zeiss star projector sat in the center, restored and updated with modern digital components that could project not just stars but planets, nebulae, entire galaxies. They dimmed the lights for the first official show. The dome went dark. Then slowly, stars appeared overhead. Thousands of them, more than human eyes could see from even the darkest desert. The projector rotated, showing how the sky changed through the night and across seasons. A narrator's voice explained what they were seeing, not dry, astronomical facts, but poetry about the cosmos. about how every atom in human bodies was forged in the heart of dying stars, about how meteorites were messages from space, pieces of the universe delivered to Earth for us to study and wonder at. Maya watched Lucas's face as he stared at the projected stars. His expression was the same as every other child in that dome, pure wonder, the kind that makes you believe anything is possible. After the show, as people filtered out to explore the galleries, Maya found a quiet corner and pulled out her phone. She'd received a message that morning from an email address she didn't recognize. "Miss Torres, you don't know me, but I was Dr. Emil Castellanos's research assistant for 15 years. I heard about the museum opening and wanted to tell you something he once told me. He said, 'When I'm gone, someone will find the collection. I don't know who. But it will be someone who understands that dreams hidden away aren't lost. They're seeds waiting for the right season. Thank you for being that someone. Thank you for proving him right.'" Maya read the message 3 times, tears blurring her vision. She thought about the photographs of Dr. Castellanos, his hand on that star projector, his expression mixing love and loss and hope that somehow, someday, his dream would continue. She walked back into the dome chamber where a new show was starting, found a seat next to Lucas, and took his hand as the stars appeared overhead once again. This wasn't just a building anymore. It wasn't just a collection of valuable rocks. It was proof that sometimes the universe conspires to give impossible gifts to people who need them most. That sometimes buying a condemned building with your last dollar isn't stupidity, it's faith. The stars wheeled overhead, exactly as they had in 1958, when Dr. Castellanos first turned on that projector, exactly as they would for generations to come. Maya had spent $950 and found $315 million, but what she'd really found was worth more than any number. She'd found proof that dreams survive, that beauty persists, that one person's love can become another person's legacy. She'd found the stars. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.